Good evening, folks, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. Hope you had a good week. Let's see who we have on tonight. We have Joe Cake. Great to see you, Joe. Stu, great to have you on once again. Great to see you. Raven 1983 Witch, great to see you too. Killer, great to have you on. Thanks for moderating. We have Ruth, great to see you. Brian. Brian says, evening, Max. Thanks for the great work. Up the workers, up the workers. And remember to, on every Thursday, to clap for strikers. We have FSM is the dog. FSM certainly is the dog. And Jacob says that too. Jacob, welcome. We have John O'Sullivan. Great to see you, John. Mary, great to see you. We have also Hugh. Great to have you on. CGM, thanks for moderating as well. We have Roseanne. Great to see you. Chatty Rat, great to see you too. Colin, great to have you on. Fearless Wolf, great to see you. Hope you're well. Lenan, great to see you. We have also Boomerage, great to see you too. QA Library, hope you're well. I forgot it was Friday today. Yeah, because we had the live stream on Wednesday because I had a problem on Tuesday, so it sort of messed things up for sure. We have Derek is on too. We also have Stephanie King, great to see you, Stephanie. Wolf Pet, great to see you too. Who else have we got tonight? Jean T, great to see you once again. Kalahella, great to have you on. Stephen, great to see you. Von Nakarizer, great to see you. I hope you're well. Stuart Keiichi Muller, great to have you on once again. Hope you're fine. Galandrina, great to see you. Asperger's Europe, Ronnie, and so many more. Hope you're all very well. I see Regan Elite, Mike Higgins, Nico is here too. Great to have you all on. Hope you had a good week, and well, I hope you're ready for 2023. It's going to be a wonderful year, of course. And we said that back in 2021 as well. And we said that back in 2019 about 2020. And okay. As we go back and back, we always say next year is going to be much better. And well, the less said about that, the better. But probably the very first live stream next week will be, of course, on in January, so we'll probably talk a little bit about what's going to happen maybe in 2023 in politics, in Brexit land, and in all around Europe and around the world. So just to cover some of the things tonight, I'm not going to go into a 22 year in review. I think that'd be a little bit boring. You've probably heard so many of those already, so I'm just going to cover some of the things from today and this week. An election year, Doc, that's interesting. It could be an election year. Depends on how. If there are a number of by-election, I think it's going to put pressure on Rishi Sunak, and it could bring down the government. So it depends on a number of things. Lefty Boater, sorry, great to see you on the stream. Thanks for that super chat. Just wanted to say thanks for everyone's support earlier this month while I was going through a difficult time. That's great to hear. I really hope that you're managing well, and it's good. It's great that it seems you're doing well. So the best of luck, and hope that whatever sports you do need, you are getting it, and don't feel afraid to reach out to people for support, for help. Thanks for that super chat, and I hope next year is going to be a great year for you as well, a better year than this year. Reagan Elite, thanks so much for that super chat. Have a happy New Year, Max, to you and the chat. Thank you so much, Reagan Elite. Gareth, thanks so much for that super chat too. We have 2023 wouldn't be coming if not for Brexit, folks. Won't be coming if not for Brexit, folks. Yeah, Brexit is going to be more interesting again in 2023 because there are a lot of new restrictions coming in and new rules coming in for trade, which is going to be a nightmare for exporters. FSM is the dog. Thanks so much for that super chat. Hell will freeze over before a general election in 2023. The Tories would lose. They'll try and hold out for as long as they can, I think. But the problem is, the longer they hold out, and the worse the economy gets, it's going to be, risky for them. Fearless Wolf, thanks so much for that super chat. For your New Year's resolution, you have to do a live stream in a mankini. And FSM as the dog replies perfectly with no in a Darth Vader voice. No. Mankini, no. I've said before, mankinis are a crime against humanity. And anyone who doesn't know what a mankini is, I'm not suggesting you Google it, okay? It's terrible. It's terrible, but you can probably imagine bikini, mankini. So you can... Fearless Wolf says yes. If I do the mankini, then the problem is the number of viewers, subscribers to the channel would drop to about 1. it'd be just a Fearless Wolf that would be left. Everyone else would leave the channel. 2023 will be risky, Sunak. Probably, yes. Just say Borat, Max, yes. Number 3, great to see you on the stream. As Palpatine said, do it. So I just want to start off with this video here about a review of 2022. As I said at the beginning, I'm not going to go into too much detail about that. About 2022, I think you've probably heard enough, and many people just want to move on. But some of the stories this week which were interesting, and maybe some of the funnier videos from this year, I just wanted to refresh our minds on them, so they were funny and it's good to see them again. But here from Sky News, talking about the economy.
What a year. Let's have a look at some of the charts that defined it, starting with perhaps the most striking one of all. This is inflation, the Consumer Price Index, CPI. This is the annual rate, basically prices going up. And have a look. In October, it got up to 11.1%. That was the highest that we've seen since going all the way back to 1981. And the funny thing is, when that rises, you get all sorts of other things going on in the economy as well. Let me put a line for strikes on top of it. We're just superimposing a different line, different axis, but look at how similar the shapes are. When inflation's low, you don't get as many strikes. When inflation's high, you do tend to get more strikes, and that's exactly what we are, experiencing at the moment.
Because inflation is driving people into poverty, and people who are working, who want to avoid poverty, will go on strike in order to get better pay and conditions. Gareth, thanks so much for that super chat once again. Biggest hope for 2023, the DUP being telt again. The DUP, oh my goodness, the DUP, probably the stupidest political party in UK history, or if not in world history, definitely in UK history. The stupidest political party. The party that campaigned for Brexit, hoping that it would create a border on the island of Ireland, which instead resulted in a border in the Irish Sea. The campaign for a Brexit that has resulted in the speeding up of the ending of the Union. If Brexit hadn't happened, we wouldn't be seeing the things we're seeing today in Northern Ireland. And the stupidest party also because they have something wonderful that could actually help protect the Union. It's not a guarantee, but it's certainly something that could be useful for unionists, and they should be engaged. They should be supporting and embracing the Northern Ireland Protocol, because it gives Northern Ireland a unique position where it has access to the single market and the UK internal market, and no other part of the UK has that benefit. And the longer it stays in place, the longer it will stay in place. And if Northern Ireland were to become part of a united Ireland, the Northern Ireland Protocol would end, of course, and Northern Ireland would lose that benefit. That's just a fact. It's not an opinion. It's not political language. It's a fact. Northern Ireland would lose out, in a sense. They would lose the benefit of the Northern Ireland Protocol, and you would think unionists would be cheering on the protocol. But the DUP are just too stupid to realise that. I think a united Ireland will come about eventually, but Brexit, for example, speeded it up because people realise, the Tories and the Brexiteers don't care about the union. They prefer to damage the economy. They're interested in disaster capitalism, and they've never cared about Northern Ireland, and they see Northern Ireland as just an appendix. The UK is appendix. It's there, but you're probably better off getting rid of it because it could get infected. This is the way the Tories and Brexiteers see Northern Ireland. They don't want to go through the surgery, but if it gets infected, they're going to rip it out. And they see Northern Ireland as something useful politically, but they don't really care about Northern Ireland. And they certainly don't care about the DUP. Also, max paramilitary threat is on the rise in Northern Ireland, and that's also a problem that you're seeing. The fringe elements in Northern Ireland who are complete lunatics when it comes to the Northern Ireland Protocol. They say we have to, it's cutting Northern Ireland from the rest of the UK. In a sense, it's just about trade. It's not about people in Northern Ireland. They haven't changed their identity. Their identity hasn't changed. They still have access to UK passports, the blue ones, the post-Brexit blue passports, if they want, or they can have access to an EU Irish passport if they want, which is interesting because some unions have actually taken them up because they're very useful. They're more useful, unfortunately, than a British passport. British passport used to be one of the greatest in Europe, in the world actually, and now it's much diminished, and it's made in France or Poland, I don't remember. Anyway, but the paramilitary organizations are getting really worried about Northern Ireland moving towards a united Ireland. Those on the loyalist side, many of them who campaigned for Brexit as well, not realizing the realities of Brexit. And you're seeing on the other side, in the Republican side, smaller fringe movements who want to bring about a united Ireland in a different way, don't want to wait for a political settlement. So there is a real concern over, it was made in Poland. It's been made in Poland. Produced in Poland for a French firm. How many Brexiteers were celebrating that? So there are real concerns in Northern Ireland about paramilitary organisations still. They never really went away.
And if past this prologue, that's also going to push that red line up even further. So more strikes in the future. Now, what is it that's driving up prices? Well, it's a lot of things, but above all, it's this, gas prices, wholesale gas prices. And just look at how low they were through 2007, 2008, going all the way through till about 2021. So just before the invasion of Ukraine, it got up really sharp. And you can see on the 26th of August in 2022, that is a record, the highest ever, £5.50 a therm. And some people think it's going to stay high for a long time, longer even than the government expects. So important thing there. Of course, the consequence of all of this is it goes into our pockets, doesn't it? Real household disposable income is a really good measure of just whether we're getting better off or worse off. So anything above the line is getting better off, growth. Anything below the line is the opposite. And have a look at what happened in 2022. Look at the bars that come up here. Look, the biggest fall on record. That is why we're all feeling a little bit worse off at the moment, and that is expected to continue in the coming years as well. Final thing, you couldn't really talk about 2022, could you, without talking about the pound and about the mini budget. Remember, this is the pound against the dollar. Anything going up is the pound getting stronger. We're going back through history. 1985, the Plaza Accord, up until recently, the lowest it ever got, about $1.05. You've got Black Wednesday, that wasn't a good moment for the government, another Tory government as well. You've got 2016, the EU referendum. Look at these big falls in the pound. Never really recovered from there. But the nadir, the real nadir, was at the mini-budget. The days after the mini-budget, got to the low.
Now, when it comes to the mini-budget, why is Liz Truss still an MP? Why is Kwasi Kwarteng still an MP? Why haven't they resigned? Why haven't they been deselected? Why haven't their constituencies removed them? The amount of damage that Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng did to the economy is criminal, and nothing happened to them. Why? I said this at the time. If you stole 65 pounds from, if you were working in a supermarket and you stole 65, or you didn't ring up 65 pounds, you're 65 pounds short at the end of the day, you'd have to pay that back yourself. If you pocketed it, you'd be probably ending up in prison. But why is it when Kwasi Kwarteng lost 65 billion pounds because the central bank, the Bank of England, had to intervene and prop up pensions, nothing happened to him? Actually, he went for a little party afterwards with his friends in the city to celebrate his budget. Magic, thanks so much for that super chat. I wish people would start asking why we're not paying the wholesale price for gas and not the production price. We'll start asking why we're paying the wholesale price and not the production price. Yes, why are people paying the wholesale price? Yes, so somebody between the production and the delivery is making a massive amount of money. And why are they not being? Why hasn't this been nationalized? Imagine if this was nationalized, then the state could provide cheap energy to people, or at least protect them from these spikes. But of course, they don't do that. They allow these private companies, the wholesalers, to make massive profits. And we saw during the year where Rishi Sunak, when he was Chancellor, decided, well, what we're going to do is we're going to, under pressure from the Labour Party, impose a windfall tax. But the caveat within the windfall tax is, well, if you're going to reinvest your profits, then you won't. If you're going to make investments, then you'll avoid the windfall tax. And the energy companies were like, oh, okay, we'll do that. See, we've invested in in new energy production. There, can we avoid the windfall tax? Yeah, sure, okay. So they ended up not paying the windfall tax. So the windfall tax was a complete waste of time, as most of these companies were able to avoid it. It's all about protecting the richest in society. And it's going to continue next year, unfortunately. The Tories won't nationalise. They didn't even put on a windfall tax. Yes, Labour won't have the bottle. The difference between the wholesale and production prices is what a proper windfall was to deal with. The profits for the few and the entire point of Brexit for the ones who initiated it. Yes. And talking about Brexit, I just wanted to cover this call that James O'Brien had some months ago, but it was an interesting call.
You still think Brexit was a good idea, don't you?
No, but James, I didn't phone up here to argue the benefits of Brexit with you.
You kind of did, because you cannot defend Boris Johnson unless you're still clinging to the carcass of Brexit. It's intellectually impossible.
Fine, that's perfect. You've got me, but I'm not clinging to Brexit. I'm not clinging to the rights or wrongs of it. I'm clinging to simply one fact.
Go on.
That he got it done.
But he didn't.
So now, say for example,
but he didn't. He didn't.
In the perception of, in the view of somebody that says, I want to have Brexit.
Yes.
And you have Theresa May, and you have the paralysis in Parliament. And if I could just jump to Trump 1 minute, if that would be okay. So,
yes, of course, Glenn.
Believe me, I'm no Trump supporter either. I'm not that already. But what I'm saying is, if you're an American and he says, look, Americans for Americans jobs, and then Ford say, I'm moving a car plant to Mexico, and he says, do that and I'll tax you 50% or whatever it was, and they change their mind, that's people seeing things getting done.
Let's not talk about, because I don't think that happened, did it?
I actually think that did, James.
Did it?
But there were other things. Like I say, I'm no expert on politics, but when he moved, and again,
but let's talk about you. Let's zone in on this.
Sure.
So you've got the governor of the Bank of England warning that our economy is going to be the worst in the developed world soon.
Sure.
You've got even the government's own forecasts describing the damage done to our GDP by Brexit as being off the scale. Worse than COVID, by multiples, worse than what COVID has done. The Brexit that you still think he got done is not done. They're now threatening to tear up the treaty that you're claiming as a reason for continuing to support Boris Johnson. They're trying to pass legislation in the House of Commons that would allow them to abandon what you have been persuaded involved getting Brexit done. So they're trying, literally, Glenn, as we speak, they're trying to get Brexit undone. And here you are, still. Why?
They're trying to get just that border between Northern Ireland and England and UK changed, aren't they? That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Can I just say as well, all the forecasts as well, this is another
No,
thing
let's just focus on that. Because you use the phrase get Brexit done, that they are now trying to get Brexit undone.
Undone. But
so you can't cheer them for getting it done and cheer them when they're trying to get it undone.
But the point is, James,
Go on.
The things that they've said to we're going to do this,
yes,
they actually have done.
For example?
They've got, well, as in Brexit, and that you can criticise it now.
You have to listen to the word.
This is terrible. Okay, what have they done? They got Brexit done. Okay, but what did they actually get done?
Glenn, you have to listen to the words.
Totally listening to the words.
They are trying to get it undone. No, the only way that you could come out of the customs union and the single market while respecting the role of the Good Friday Agreement, the only way you could do that was by having a border in the Irish Sea.
But if they take away that border...
No, you can't take it away.
Why is that? Why is that, James? You'll have to explain. Why can't we just not have a border between what is Northern Ireland and the UK?
Because that would break the Good Friday Agreement.
But I mean, I'm not being funny, but if they want to have a border between you, this is what I mean, James. If you want to a debate to me, like for example, Brexit, or you want to take a
what do you like about Brexit? What do you like about it?
No, but it's not. No, honestly, James, what I'm saying is my whole reason for calling was not to debate the fact of left and right. And I live with you for one reason. We're
not. You're still a fan of Boris Johnson, even though you lost your mum during COVID while he was having more parties than Peter Stringfellow.
Yes.
The reason why the only reason you've got
I'm a fan of Brexit.
But you are. You are saying he got it done.
No, you're saying I'm a fan of Boris Johnson. Not at all. You can't be a fan of somebody that's made that many mistakes.
But here you are, supporting him, bringing me to explain your support for him.
If I think that down the road another thing's going to come up and it says, right, the country needs to do this and it needs to do that now, if he's the only person I can rely on to say, right, we're going to do it and I'll get it done, then that is what I'm trying to say to you. That is why so many people...
But that's a bit like admiring an arsonist because he has successfully set fire to a building. At least he got it done.
Well, this is perfect. It's like admiring an arsonist because they burnt down the building. He burnt down... He said he'd burn down... He didn't actually say he'd burn down the building. He'd actually said he'll protect the building. He burnt down the building. He got the building done.
So I'm going to insist.
Nothing like admiring, James.
I'm going to insist that you tell me what you like about Brexit, why you're glad it got done. I just want you to give me an answer.
Back to Brexit?
Yeah.
Well, because a lot of people thought that...
I don't care about them. I only care about you. I only care about you. What do you like about it?
Governing themselves.
What? No. Don't give me that. Tell me about what it is you like about it. Now, that is better. How is your life better? Why are you glad it got done? What's improved?
Well, it's not improved. I tell you what hasn't improved. That planes on.
Please just tell me what has improved.
I would say I had a granddaughter recently. That's improved for me.
Probably not a consequence of Brexit. So let's try again.
A granddaughter recently.
What is it? Why are you glad it got? Why are you glad it got done?
James, I don't know what you want to say. My life has very little changed.
Why are you glad it got done?
Because I believe that the UK should be ruling itself. Exactly the same thing.
The UK always was ruling. The UK always was ruling itself.
Well, our courts said that was legal.
That's got nothing to do with Brexit.
It's amazingly to do with Brexit.
But that happened after Brexit got done, Glenn.
Yes, exactly. Which is why.
So how can Brexit have fixed something that you think is still broken?
Now he's going to have to change another thing where the European.
But Brexit got done, Glenn. Brexit got done.
Yeah. Exactly, but that court, that European court,
which has nothing to do with the European Union.
And now he's going to have to change that as
I'm
well.
going to say the words again, Glenn. That the thing you're talking about has nothing to do with membership of the European Union.
But no, it's just another thing that he's going to change. But if he needs to change that, who's going to change
But
it?
Glenn, I
Theresa
asked you
May?
why you were
Keir Starmer?
glad that Brexit had been done, and you talked about Rwanda. But Rwanda is happening after Brexit got done.
James, you can paint me as an extremist right wing if you want, but that's
I'm
not me
not,
at
Glenn.
all.
I'm not painting you as anything.
See what he's doing? He's called out on his crap, and then he tries to present himself as, oh, you're insulting me. You're trying to paint me as a right winger. No, if you said Boris Johnson got Brexit done, and then you're saying we need to leave the European Court of Human Rights because that's part of the EU, which it's not, then how did he get Brexit done? Like, you can't have something done and then say, well, there's more to do. No, it's either done or it's not.
I'm just repeating your own words back to you. The thing you've given me as a benefit of Brexit is a bad thing that happened with regard to Rwanda after Brexit happened.
I wasn't calling you about Brexit at all.
Of course you were. You can't separate Boris Johnson from Brexit. And you brought Brexit up, Glenn. When I said, why do you still like him? You said he got Brexit done.
He got it done.
So how come the Rwandan thing? How come the Rwandan thing happened then?
Well, that's exactly it. Now
it was British courts that stopped the flights to Rwanda. The massive majority of them were stopped by British courts, Glenn.
Then you've got me, James. Then I was mistaken.
But you still think he's a winner, though, right? You're still glad that he got Brexit done, even though it was British courts that stopped most of those refugees being deported to Rwanda against their will.
I thought it was the European Court for Human Rights.
That was the final. And also the European Court of the European. No. That was the final cases. No, that was the final cases. Most of them had already been taken off the plane.
Overruled our courts.
But even if this was a zinger. It doesn't work because that's got nothing to do with the European Union. And do you know, finally, Glenn...
At the end of the day,
you're
not ruling yourself.
No, Glenn, you're not making any sense.
I'll stop here because it's just getting painful. You have people who just don't understand things. And instead of actually listening and trying to understand, they remain in a position where they just regurgitate what they've heard from other people. So instead of actually trying to be educated, and this is why I've said before that I'd like to speak to Brexiteers. I'd like to bring them on and have a chat with them. And I'm organising something, hopefully very soon, about this, where I want to understand why people voted a particular way, what they believed they would receive by voting that way, and what they actually received by voting that way. I want to be educated on this. What are the benefits of leaving the EU? What are the benefits of being outside the single market? Are there benefits? And when I talk about benefits, it can't be something like sovereignty or taking back control. It has to be something tangible because it was sold as something tangible. It would end NHS waiting lists. You would have your children wouldn't be in a overcrowded classroom. You would be able to get a better job. There would be more money for public services. These were all things that were sold to the public. Now, obviously, it was a lie, but surely there must be something that you can come up with and say, yes, this is a benefit of Brexit, a tangible benefit. At least, if it's not something for the country, there must be some benefit for you. Otherwise, why would you continue to support it? It's James O'Brien has said before, the footballization of politics, where there aren't any real benefits. You just support a club, you support a team. There's no benefit for you, but you have decided, I'm going to support this team no matter what. And even if they are, even if they're fouling, even if they're playing dirty, it doesn't matter. They're my team. And I really don't understand that. Like, people have said to me, oh, what about the EU? Aren't there problems with the EU? Yes, there are many problems with the EU. That's why it's important to try and reform it. Like, you reform the organisation from within. You don't reform it from without. This is why it made no sense to me why Brexiteers were saying, well, the EU is broken, we need to leave. Well, the problem was the people who were saying it was broken never engaged. Nigel Farage, when he was a member of the European Parliament, he was invited to many committees and he didn't bother to turn up half the time. Or when he did, he didn't engage with the other members. He didn't provide input. He didn't say, okay, this is what we need to do. Let's reform the EU. He would criticize the EU, but he was never there to provide input, to say, let's change it to do it this. Let's change it to do this, or let's change it to do that. Let's make it more transparent. The criticisms he had of the EU were not really criticisms because he was not interested in fixing the problems. His solution was just to get out. It's like somebody, you're a member of an organization. It can be anything, a club, it can be a gym, it can be anything. You can be a member of something and you can say, look, there are some problems within this organization, within this club or whatever. But the best way to fix those problems is within the organization. Lobbying, convincing other people that they should accept what you believe is a good change for that organization. You don't stand outside the window screaming in. That doesn't change anything. And this was what Brexiteers were suggesting the best way forward was. We need to leave in order to have our freedoms back or whatever. Number 3, thanks so much for that super chat. Sheepy led by wolves. Yes. But Max, we can save 3p on Aussie beer from our trade deal, I think. But fish, Max, what about the fish? Sir Larry the Cat, great to see you. Where are these pints? Not seeing any. Not even the Mad Brexiteer pub chain. You remember the pint glasses? What happened with those? They were the crown on the pint glass. Wasn't that a Brexit benefit? Max, he turned up to be a single fisheries he turned up to a single fisheries meeting, for fuck's sake. It was one meeting he turned up to. James Lawless, great to see you on the stream. Conservator and Wee Scott's dog are on. Great to see both of you. So I'll leave that. Sticking with Brexit, of course, UK ministers pledged to match EU funding after Brexit. How's it going? Well, you can see here, I'll just start from the top. It says, in recent years, 2 flagship EU programmes were a lifeline for communities across the UK. The European Regional Development Fund, the ERDF, and the European Social Fund, ESF, poured €10.8 billion, or £9.26 billion, into roads, factories, social inclusion projects, including further education, colleges, and into places such as Wales, North East England, Cornwall, and the island of Scilly, paying for everything from carpentry workshops to blind people, for blind people to an upgrade of Harley Harbour in Cornwall to facilitate an offshore wind farm. The ERDF sank capital into everything from new roads to university facilities, business hubs and sports centres in economically deprived regions, while the ESF skills training, back to work schemes and other projects helped those furthest from jobs. And this is what I've said before. When it came to EU funding, it was about providing support for the most vulnerable, the most deprived areas. It was not about winning votes. Okay, this is what is very important when you compare EU funding to state funding. Generally, state funding, not always, but sometimes, most of the time, I believe, it's about propping up a politician or helping a politician win a seat. Look, there's an election coming up, pump a load of money into this region, into this constituency, in order to help the incumbent or to win the seat. That's what it's about. And if you compare that to EU funding, the EU say, okay, what are the most deprived areas in the Union? These are the most deprived areas. Okay, we need to lift the boat. You know, a rising tide lifts all boats. So there was the idea of we need to raise up, level up in a sense. The old Tory mantra: level up these communities. These are areas that require funding. We need to pump money into those areas. For example, Northern Ireland received a huge amount of funding. So you can see, according to this map, European regional funds and European structural funds, last round of funding 2014 to 2020, and the highest areas were in Wales. UK Shared Prosperity Fund, new post-Brexit UK dispensation funding period 2022 to 2025. And you can see how, for example, Scotland is getting less. Northern Ireland is getting one lump sum, while before it was focused on different counties. And while in the past, certain part, like for example, you can see the real difference with Scotland, Wales to a certain extent. You can see how in the EU funding was more focused, while the new UK Prosperity Fund is more spread out. Westminster puts money where they want. EU puts money where it's needed. Well said, Magic. That's summarized perfectly there. Westminster puts money where they want, while the EU puts money where it's needed. And for example, with Northern Ireland, you can see how, and to a certain extent, what I've been reading recently about Wales is the money in Wales will be, in a sense, decided by Westminster. Westminster will say, okay, where the money will go, while before, of course, it was decided by the Welsh administration. Because I'll say the biggest beneficiaries were Wales and Cornwall, which was categorised as one of the poorest regions in Northern Europe. To continue, ministers pledged to match EU funding for the duration of the Parliament, setting up the UK Shared Prosperity Fund last December, promising that the government, rather than Brussels, would choose where the money was spent, part of the Brexit dividend. But it hasn't turned out like that. In Wales, people speak of a cliff edge in funding that has caused despair and disappointment. Hundreds of voluntary organisations have had to shut up shop or end support programs for the most vulnerable in society because the government delays in replacing EU funding. It has emerged. The baby has been completely thrown out with the bathwater, and it is just having a big impact, said Matthew Brown, the Director of Operations at the Wales Council for Voluntary Organisations, which ran the £44 million Active Inclusion Fund, providing grants to support disadvantaged people into employment. Other final projects are coming to an end at the end of December, and we're having to lay off staff because the SPF has not come in time. We are dismantling and moving staff, closing down stuff that the UK government and local authorities and Wales are going to have to look at rebuilding in the next couple of years. So this is, once again, the idea, okay, they're not getting the funding in time, so they're closing down these organisations, and then they'll have to restart these organisations later on. If they had received the money on time, even if it's less, they'd be able to manage it. But now they're going to have to lay off staff and then rehire staff in the future. Which is... This was a leisure centre, EU-funded leisure centre in Ebwell Vale, Wales. And this was... And you can see this all over Europe. There's structure funds, there's cohesion funds all over Europe for deprived areas. The idea of the EU is to level up, to provide funding where it's needed, and not have it influenced politically. But as Majik said in the super chat, it's about where the Tories will decide where money goes, not the local authorities or the national assemblies in, for example, Wales or Scotland. Hugh says the Irish are helping us with trade, though our backdoors in Fishguard and Holyhead in Wales. Oops, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Flagged through no question asked. This is what I've heard as well about a lot of stuff coming into the UK that's not being checked. One wonders how much money the UK is losing these days compared to the money the UK was paying into Brussels. It's at least 40 billion. 30p Lee had 175 grand expenses. And then there was another Tory MP talking about food banks, and he claimed 200,000 last year. Okay, I want to move on. Finally, Rishi Sunak to impose COVID tests on travellers from China in U-turn. What is it about the Tory government and U-turns? Rishi Sunak has performed a major U-turn on imposing COVID checks on travellers from China after criticism from a growing number of Conservative MPs over his dithering. You know, this is a good U-turn. Okay, it's a good thing that he did U-turn on this, but once again, this is something that shouldn't have happened. It should have been, okay, well, it's another case of not listening. You see what's happening in China. You saw that the US, India and Italy decided we need to check people coming in from China. And the UK said, no, we're not going to do it. Not going to do it. Oh, U-turn. After a series of seemingly mixed messages about whether the UK would follow the lead of Spain, Italy, the US and India in screening arrivals, the Prime Minister backed the move to bring the UK in line with its allies in a change of policy on Friday. How many people came in that were not checked? COVID-19 cases in China continued to surge after Beijing's abrupt decision to end most of its strict pandemic restrictions. Concerns about the ability to track any potential new variants have led Number 10 to bring forward a clarification that was promised by Defence Secretary Ben Wallace earlier this week. Because travel is a devolved matter, the decision will only affect England only. However, all direct flights from China are set to land in England. Yeah, so you can't get a direct flight from Beijing to Edinburgh, for example, or to Cardiff. So you have to fly into England. FSM is the dog. Thanks so much for that super chat. Too little, too late. No mask, no test, no stats. That is like, so you have to test. Like, once again, this is so simple. You just say that anyone who's reintroduced mask wearing on aircraft or at least in airports. Why can't you do that? No, we don't want to, because remember, Boris got COVID done or something. And, we convinced people that everything was back to normal. Once again, I think there's this fear that it's going to affect the economy. And the economy is more important than protecting people. We saw that before. Because all those traveling from China will be required to take a pre-departure test. The move is designed to align with the US's policy, and it's been taken because of what the government believes is a lack of reliable data from China. The measures are said to be precautionary and temporary to improve the surveillance of imported COVID cases. Sunak, who said he previously resisted some COVID measures, including helping avert a lockdown last Christmas when he was Chancellor, came under pressure from more senior backbenchers earlier on Friday. Tobias Ellwood, the chair of the Commons Defence Select Committee, suggested the government's emergency, known as COBRA, should already have been convened. Once again, it's this fear of actually taking real action. He raised concerns about the reliability of data compiled by the authorities in China, which has experienced a sharp rise in reports of COVID cases and deaths after a significant weakening of rules and abandonment of the zero COVID strategy. We should be taking our own precautionary measures. We do not know what the variants of COVID have developed in China in the last 3 years of their lockdown. Any dithering leaves us as a hostage to fortune. The later you leave any action, the less impact it will have. Let's get testing in place for passengers regardless of nationality of all incoming flights from China. Which makes sense, yes. Still to this day, wearing a mask. Well said, Magic. Johnson let 30,000 Italians into the UK for a football match, and Liverpool got hit big time. And they're dithering again. So, just say, like, okay, shouldn't it be a case of, okay, if you want to fly into the UK from anywhere, you need to have a test. Why not do that? Is there a new variant? I don't know if there's a new variant. There is a concern that there could be a new variant. So the problem in China, it seems, is that the vaccine that they use, which is not the same as the one used in the West, the Moderna or the AstraZeneca one, they have their own one, and it doesn't seem to be as effective as the Western one, and they haven't been distributing it to the elderly, which means that if you're seeing images from China, you'll see mainly elderly people in hospital, which is once again really concerning. Dido Harding will be rubbing her hands hearing this. Yes. Rishi Sunak, both. So here's a report from Sky News on it.
Let's bring you some breaking news now. And the government is expected to announce a requirement for a pre-departure test for people flying from China to the UK. Let's cross live now to our political correspondent, Liz Bates in Westminster. Liz, what more do we know this hour?
Well, a swift and significant change in the UK's policy on this issue just in the last couple of hours. Now, we haven't had official confirmation of this yet, but we do understand that it's coming very soon. And what has changed is that the UK will be asking for a pre-departure test for people flying from China to the UK to prove that they do not have COVID. And this is, of course, after China announced that it would be preparing to reopen its borders in January. That COVID zero policy approach that they have taken will no longer be the case. And that's prompted a number of countries to change their position on this in the last few days and weeks. The US, Japan, Taiwan and India, just some of the countries who will now be asking for tests from people arriving into those countries from China to prove that they don't have COVID. What's quite interesting about this, when we think about the UK's position on this, is it does seem to have changed quite rapidly just in the last couple of days. We heard from a couple of ministers, Ben Wallace, Health Minister Will Quince as well, said in the last few days that the UK's approach to this was under review. And what Will Quince was saying in particular was that they were looking specifically at whether there were any new variants in China, because they were the real risk to people in the UK. And whilst ever that was not the case, then the policy would be, as I say, under review. But it does seem like it's changed just in the last few hours, and now people will need tests from China if they are entering the UK. We understand it's because of a lack of confidence in the China vaccine and the data. The measures will be temporary and precautionary. So we will have official confirmation very, very soon on this. But as it stands, the policy has changed.
It's better that it changed, but, you know, and it's good that it's changed quickly as opposed to when Boris Johnson was in charge. Can you imagine if Boris Johnson was in charge? They probably would say, no, it's okay. Give it another few weeks. Then we'll decide. So, guys, we're about halfway through the stream, or actually over halfway through the stream. So I just want to take a short break and let's enjoy this.
Gentlemen.
Comedy video from earlier in the year. it's still valid, I think. So just finding some of the funniest videos from this year. I think you probably enjoyed this one.
Captain, the ship is sinking. We need to act now. What plans have we in place?
For first class, we have lifeboats.
For second class, we have life jackets. Very good. And the lower decks?
Flotation devices.
Excellent.
Yes, they will act as flotation devices for the rich people.
It's going to be freezing, all right? How are people going to keep warm?
For first class, we have blankets.
And the lower classes?
Advice.
Advice.
Yes, like if you wave your arms around a lot, you can increase your body temperature by up to 10%.
Fascinating.
Sir, I found some extra life jackets. Should we give them to the lower classes?
No, I have a better idea. Hand them out to the upper classes, and then let them pass them down.
Yes. Why wouldn't they?
It makes perfect sense.
Sir, I'm getting reports of unrest on the lower decks.
Okay, something needs to be done. Organise a fireworks display.
Yes, sir.
And you, organise a raffle where you can win a life jacket.
Sir, I don't think it's going to be enough. They're blaming us for the lack of lifeboats.
Really? Well, have you not explained to them that it's not our fault that there's not enough lifeboats?
Isn't it?
No. It's because of the stowaways.
Stowaways?
Yes, it's very important that you learn that word, gentlemen. Stowaways.
Stowaways.
Yes.
Sir, the inner hull has been breached. The lower class cabins are filling with water.
Hold firm, now is not the time to panic.
Sir, the middle class are getting nervous.
Give them a 5% discount on the tickets, that should keep them happy.
Sir, we're sinking. Do something.
What the hell do you want me to do about it? It's not my fault, is it?
You know what? I'm not surprised this ship is sinking with you as captain.
Oh, well, that's very rich, isn't it? Seeing as we wouldn't even be in this situation in the first place if it wasn't for the course that you plotted when you were captain.
And if I had a chance to be captain, I would have plotted an entirely different course.
No, please.
Sir, we're going down. We're past the point of no return.
Well, gentlemen, it seems it falls to me then to do the honourable thing and resign.
What?
What?
I wish you my best and Godspeed.
Yeah. Oh.
Wow.
Right. He's gone.
You know, I think I'd make a pretty good captain.
Well, no, I wouldn't be captain.
No, I said I want to be captain first.
I was
Get
never
off!
given a
I'm in
chance.
charge.
I was never given a chance to be captain.
It's my turn.
No.
The Conservative Party. Moving on. We have some good news. Oh my god, no, this was wonderful. So, influencer, I had never heard of this guy until this week. Influencer Andrew Tate held on rape and organized crime charges in Romania. Now, I don't know if he was tipped off by a certain environmentalist, but when I first heard about this guy, I was like, my god, this guy is a piece of crap. And then a few days later, I heard that he was arrested. And I was like, oh, okay, that's good. Being a massive, terrible person generally doesn't work out well for you unless you're like Boris Johnson or Silvio Berlusconi. But generally, being a horrible person, you get your comeuppance in the end. So it says here, controversial online influencer and misogynist Andrew Tate has been put in pre-trial detention in Romania following his arrest on charges of human trafficking, rape, and forming an organized crime group. The former kickboxer and reality TV star, who has been banned from a number of social media platforms for misogynistic comments and hate speech, was arrested along with his brother and 2 other suspects. So it's a wonderful family, it seems. On Friday, the 4 suspects were placed in pre-trial detention for 30 days following their arrest late on Thursday, according to a spokesperson for Romania's anti-organized crime unit. The authorities said they had searched 5 homes in part of an investigation and released footage of one of the raids, showing riot police entering a luxurious residence. Footage of items seized at the location included stacks of euro notes and a handgun. So this guy seems like a sort of mafia boss. And well done to the Romanian authorities for picking this guy up. In a statement, the authorities said 2 British citizens and 2 Romanians were accused of forming a gang. Wait till Nigel Farage hears about this. He'll be devastated. Nigel Farage. I saw pictures of Farage posing with this guy. Well, obviously, Nigel is terrible. Hates the idea of foreigners involved in crime. Although this guy probably isn't. Is he a foreigner? He's, as far as I know, he's half American, half British or something. In a statement, the 2 British citizens and 2 Romanians were accused of forming a gang that recruited victims by misrepresenting their intention to enter into a marriage, cohabitation relationship, and the existence of genuine feelings of love. Okay. Later, the victims were forced to perform pornography through physical violence and mental coercion. Authorities said so far 6 victims have been identified. The statement also mentioned a separate allegation of rape dating to March this year, although it did not specify against which suspect the allegation was levelled. The Tate brothers have been under criminal investigation in Romania since April, when police raided their mansion in Bucharest after the US Embassy received a tip-off claiming the 21-year-old American woman was being held there against her will. The Tate brothers were questioned and later released, but the investigation was expanded to cover rape and human trafficking allegations. On Friday, Tate posted an apparent reference to his arrest on his recently reinstated Twitter account, writing, "The Matrix sent their agents," using a term taken from the Eponymous blockbuster, whose red pill trope has proven popular among misogynistic online groups for a simulated world that controls humans. Prior to the tweet, a spokesperson for Tate told the Daily Mirror he had not provided any details regarding the most recent reports. However, Andrew and Tristan Tate have the utmost respect for the Romanian authorities and will also assist and help in any way they can. I'm half expecting Elon Musk, to fly in and evacuate them in some way. The way that was it during World War II, Mussolini was rescued by the Germans. Maybe Elon Musk will do something similar. He'd fly in and break them out of prison. I wouldn't be surprised. Once again, I knew nothing about this until I knew nothing about this guy until this week, really. The Tate Gallery would be avoided. Greta thinks he needs the blue pill. I'm presuming Romanian jails aren't pleasant. I hope they're not. Tate now has a new friend, Ben Duffer. That's terrible. Sound like horrible people. Yes, definitely horrible individuals. Once again, I know very little of this guy. I haven't followed him, but I have heard that he is... He was banned from social media and then he was reinstated by Elon Musk, which tells you a lot about Elon Musk. So this is going to be something interesting to watch in the future. In America, things are not going well for another wonderful individual.
So at a high level, I mean, one thing that becomes really clear here and was already fairly clear from the little bits we got that were leaked to the New York Times over the years is something I think a lot of us who cover Trump know, but isn't widely known in the general public, is that he's a terrible business person, that over this 6-year period, really the only substantive income he makes is still money from his father's estate that who died 20 years ago.
Just to stop this for a moment, Donald Trump ran a number of casinos, and they were bankrupted. Now, how the hell do you bankrupt a casino? A casino is a bit like a gold mine. It's supposed to make money. It's designed to make money. The house never loses, okay? There's the old term, the house never loses. How is it possible that he bankrupted a number of casinos? Obviously, he was. It seems what he was doing is he was claiming that they were making a loss in order to avoid paying tax on them. So there was probably money or he was using them as a cash cow to fund other things, maybe his lifestyle or maybe some sort of corruption. And in order to hide the money, he would declare that they were bankrupt or that they were not making any money. It's either incompetence or corruption, one or the other.
That this is, that Trump's own businesses, the businesses he bought into using his father's money, seem to be largely failing entities, losing shocking amounts of money. So at a top level, that sort of myth that this is a self-made man who makes money on top of money just does not seem to bear out at all, unless, of course, he's lying and saying he's had losses when he had gains, although that doesn't seem to be the case. No, so that's number one. Number two is just how international his business was, his economic intrigue. I mean, he had bank accounts all over the world. He was getting tax credits from Azerbaijan, for example. Some of my reporting showed that during the presidential campaign, Trump was in a very sketchy deal in Azerbaijan that was almost certainly part of a larger money laundering operation involving Iran's Revolutionary Guard. He claimed to have completely gotten out of Azerbaijan before he became president, but we now see that just while he was president, he was getting tax credits from the Azerbaijan government. These are massive, leaving aside any potential illegality, these are just massive questions. It's very strange for the head of state of any country to be getting tax credits from dozens of countries around the world.
This is amazing. So if you think about it for a moment, Donald Trump should never have become president. Now, obviously, for political reasons, he should never have become president. So for the amount of damage he done to the US on the world stage will never be fully calculated. But for himself, it was a big mistake becoming president because it opened up, he eventually had to open up his accounts. He surely knew that. People would have, people who were advising him surely should have told him that. You're going to eventually have to release your tax returns. Because there was pressure on him, and eventually he had to do it. If he had never run for president, he would have been able to just keep it all silent. He would have remained some sort of B-list celebrity or D-list celebrity. He would have had his shows or whatever, and he would have been pretty much okay. But because of his narcissism, I want to become president, he didn't think he would actually have to expose himself in this way. And I make a comparison with Jacob Rees-Mogg. Jacob Rees-Mogg, I don't think ever wants to become prime minister because he realizes that if he does become prime minister, there's a risk that he'll have to expose himself in a way that Trump is exposing himself. Sorry to use this language, it's terrible, but financially I'm talking about financially expose himself. And, Jacob Rees-Mogg probably has some, money that he would not like people to know that too much about. In a way, I think Rishi Sunak he's quite clean because he's clever. But Jacob Rees-Mogg, his arrogance he's able to balance the narcissism and the arrogance and the fear that if I actually became prime minister, I might actually have to expose myself financially, let people look into my records and look into my investments, and that wouldn't be very good for me. If I remain where I am, I'm small enough of a figure to get away with it. And Trump could have done the same. He could, if he had not run for president, he could have maintained his these dodgy deals he's had with businesses around or bank accounts around the world. He could have maintained all of this, and now it's going to put him in serious trouble. Reagan Ali, thanks so much for that super chat. Sorry, I missed it before. Tate spent his whole life training to fight, and he just got his butt kicked by one tweet from a teenage girl. Yes, yeah, Greta is having the last laugh, it seems. Thanks for that super chat. We also have one from Gareth. Thanks so much, Gareth. The Matrix is the globalists and the Illuminati's bastard love child or something. Why is Andrew Tate impersonating the Godfather? Just when we thought we were out of the uncycled cardboard pulled us back in. Yeah, well, what was that about the pizza boxes? I didn't understand what that was about. And of course, Andrew Tate puts on this persona that, these really pathetic individuals who follow him oh, look, he's so cool. Look at the way he's smoking a cigar. He's drinking bourbon or whatever. He's a real man. It's like, he's a real man who has like 35 cars. That's definitely not compensating for something. You know, somebody who I really admire, you know, this is probably going to piss off some people, but George Lucas. Okay. Just look at the way George Lucas dresses. George Lucas dresses like, and no offense to any, but he dresses like, you know, those truck drivers that that drive these massive rigs from one side of the US to the other. Jeans and a checkered shirt, and he's a billionaire, and he doesn't give a crap about what people think of his style. That's something I admire about him. He's not trying to pretend, look at me, I'm George Lucas with, 12 Bugattis or, 17 Ferraris or something like this. Or look at, I'm on the front page of whatever magazine. No, he's just like, I don't give a crap. That's something I admire about him. I don't know what, how his workers are or how they're treated. I don't know, but just on the issue of style, if maybe it's because I'm a bit like that myself. I dress as what's comfortable. It's clothes have to be comfortable. They don't actually have to look good. We have another super chat from Brad. Great to see you, Brad. Thanks for that. Kathy Burke. What is it with pizzas and Andrews? Well said, Brad, and well said, Kathy Burke. Yeah, what is it with Andrews and pizzas? Something very dodgy. If you're working in a pizza shop and somebody called Andrew calls up, it's probably a good idea to hang up the phone. It's something dodgy, especially if they don't sweat. George Lucas, the Star Trek fan. The video Tate did show the pizza box from a place you can only get locally, so proved he was in the country, allowing them to get him. So the intrigue continues. I admire George Lucas too. He's a hero. He made the single best movie ever made, Revenge of the Sith. Am I right? Jacob Rees-Mogg is as a person who professes to be Roman Catholic is prohibited by UK law, statute law, in performing all the functions of the Prime Minister. If you cannot perform all the functions, there's no point in taking on the job. You can't be Catholic? Well, wasn't Tony Blair Catholic? Is it to do with Catholic or just corruption? Pizza keeps giving. Oh my God. Alistair, great to see you on the stream. Daily Blaze, great to see you too. Just on Donald Trump there, a bit more on Donald Trump. It says here, summary. Despite Trump's previous pledging that he would forego his $400,000 salary if he became president, his tax returns indicate otherwise. And this was something that the Trump supporters were saying, he's so rich, he doesn't even need the salary. He's giving it up. According to Trump's tax returns, he reported $0 in charitable givings in 2020. His last year in office, in 2017, Trump donated $1.8 million and approximately $500,000 in 2018 and 2019 each. The Biden administration on Friday finalized regulations to protect hundreds of thousands of streams, wetlands, and other waterways across the country. That's good news. In addition to listing China as a foreign country that had Trump-tied bank account, Trump also listed business income, taxes, and expenses in several other countries on his tax returns. These included Israel, Mexico, UAE, India, Qatar, Panama, Puerto Rico, the Philippines, South Korea, Brazil, amongst others. Oh my God. How can a president have... they're supposed to close all these things down when they become president, because it's a risk to national security. Because what if, the government in Qatar said to Donald Trump, oh, we're going to close your bank account unless you do us a favor. Then he's exposed. Of course, he'd be happy to do the favor, but like if he didn't have the bank account, then they couldn't hold him. They couldn't blackmail him. But Trump was so exposed to so much blackmail. It's unbelievable. Texas Democratic Representative Lloyd Doggett, cool name, Doggett, has responded to the release of Trump's tax returns, saying the Americans should be outraged by how little the former president paid in federal taxes in recent years. I don't know if this is going to work with many people, because the Republicans will say, "Oh, he paid so little in tax because he's so good at avoiding it." He had a good accountant. If you have a good accountant, you can avoid it too. So that's not a criticism of Trump. This is the sort of thing they'd say. They'd see it as a virtue, avoiding paying taxes. Rishi Sunak could probably say something similar. That's the thing. Gareth, thanks so much once again for that super chat. You just know that some pizza place somewhere, somehow, some way will slip another Andrew Sweaty kickboxer delights into the menus. I think the very first pizza place that puts Andrew Tate pizza or Prince Andrew pizza, they're going to do pretty well. Sweat free. Ugh. Okay. Alistair, great to see you on the stream. Thanks for that. Great to see you. I think I said it already. Thanks for that super chat, Max. Happy New Year. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much, Gareth and Alistair there. Thanks for that. Both of those super chats. And Happy New Year to you, Alistair, too. Daniel Goldman, and now a congressman-elect from New York, but in a former role led Democratic counsel in Donald Trump's first impeachment, has a question about the Trump tax returns release. Today's show, what the tax returns released show. Trump had bank accounts in China while he was in office in 2018. Generally, you can only have bank accounts in a foreign country if you are doing transactions in that country's currency. Joe Biden is granting full pardons to 6 people, the White House announced on Thursday in a recount triggered by the closeness of the first count, the Democratic candidate for Attorney General, Chris Mayers, was declared the winner for a second time, beating Republican candidate Abe Hanamad. Donald Trump's tax returns indicate he held overseas bank accounts while he was president, and so on. It's not looking good for Trump. We know that there's, the dogs in the street know that there's corruption here, and it's will he go to prison? That's the thing. I don't think he'll end up in prison, but I think he could be bankrupted again. The courts will come after him for a number of things, especially in New York. Guys, we're almost at the end of the stream. I just wanted to cover this one final story.
If you're a renter,
from Channel 4 News about renting, because as we've seen over the last year, it's becoming more and more difficult for young people in particular to get on the property ladder. And I just want to show you this report from Channel 4 News about this.
you may have noticed that right now it feels harder than ever to find a home.
Ruined my entire year, if not my entire life.
Bidding wars, damp, mould, personality contests.
Like X Factor.
Evictions for no reason and skyrocketing rent.
Entirely unfair and completely unmanageable.
Basically like the Wild West.
So what's going on in the UK right now? And is it really the worst time ever to be a renter?
This is quite something.
This is Ang Harrod. She recently moved into this house in South London.
You're washing your hair, the mouldy water will just start dropping on your head. I'm 27, I've got a good job, I'm looking for something a bit less uni house. I was going through a breakup and had to get out of the house ASAP.
Ang Harrod was back on the market, not just for love, but for a room in a share house.
It was like dating. You were trying to look your best, but this time was hell. It was absolute hell.
How many places do you think you inquired about?
Got to be close to 100. Like 80% of them went unanswered. If I took 5 more minutes to write that message, 50 more people would have messaged. So it just wasn't a gamble I could take.
Did you ever expect to have this much trouble?
I don't think I was expecting the toll it would take to be constantly told no. It's probably the most anxious I've probably ever been. I wasn't sleeping. I was crying a lot, and I don't cry. That's like 2 days of water. There's just too much moisture in the air.
She found a place eventually, but there were compromises.
That chair's from the past tenant.
And is that mould up there?
It's mould, and I think they had a leak, but I largely took it because I had to. Yeah, it was my one and only option.
Right now, it's not unusual for renters to feel desperate. I put a call out online asking people what it's currently like to find a home.
It is a pretty wild time out there right now. Absolutely shocking.
It's the worst I've ever seen it.
For the millions of people who rent privately in the UK, most will use an online property site to find somewhere to live.
I checked for apartment, hoping that something's been added since the last time it hit refresh.
We would ring the estate agent and it's gone.
And even if you do manage to get a viewing,
there were 90 people looking.
A belt of people.
30 plus people outside.
And I've seen this in Ireland as well. One rental property becomes available and you have a queue of up to 100 people even wanting to see it, and they have to compete against each other. And in some cases what you see as well is how the landlord will say, well, actually, you know, the rent I advertised was £1,000 a month. Well, I've just heard, you know, there have been so many people asking for this, I've decided to put it up to £1,500 a month. So people who would, you know, who would believe, okay, I've saved enough, I've managed to find a place that is within my budget, and then they go and see it, and within a few hours they realize it's no longer within their budget.
My viewing has been cancelled.
let's just say you decide you want to live there.
We had to go £250 over.
The letting agent asked me to pay the full 12 months up front.
Finding somewhere to rent is an ordeal, made worse by soaring demand. And as the number of available places shrinks, rent is going up across the UK, at the fastest rate on record. Almost 3.5 million people in England have had their rent raised in the last year alone by an average of £115 a month. And according to one property site, a single renter spends more than a third of their income on rent.
The renters united will never be defeated.
Renting is never easy, but something feels different at the moment.
Some renters are so stressed by the rental market that they're joining protests outside different estate agents in London and Manchester.
Let's go talk to the people with the mattress. I want to find out what that's all about.
How do people who can't afford their rent anymore sleep? They have to rough sleep. That's why we have cardboard, mattresses, the kind of stuff that people have to sleep on once they can't afford their rent anymore.
Are we giving up? No! Are we giving up? No!
Of all the reasons protesters gave for why they're angry about renting right now, one stood out in particular.
We've had 2 rent hikes this year. The landlord says he's just keeping up with the general rent increases in the area.
To stop greedy landlords, as the protesters here see it, and protect people from the cost of living crisis, they're calling for an emergency rent freeze, like the one recently introduced in Scotland.
To wake up one morning and put my rent up by £200-300 a month, I have nothing that I can do about that. That needs to change.
What do you say to those who would argue that, you know, this is just the market? When there's more demand, prices go up.
Yeah, well, what do you do when there's a market failure? The market has failed.
So they're calling for a rent freeze. But that's just one solution to such a myriad of problems that we've been hearing about. So I can't help but think, where does it actually leave?
The solution to this is building more homes. Then the government. So what happened before in the run up to the 1980s, the government would build homes in order to provide social housing. And then those who didn't rely on social housing would rely on the private market. But what happened in the 1980s was a lot of social housing was sold off to the people living in it, but it wasn't replaced. So you had people buying their homes, which, you know, we can argue whether that was a good idea or not, but people bought their homes under the Thatcher, during the Thatcher years. And then what happened was councils were not building new homes. Now, councils didn't get the money to build new homes. Government was decided instead, let's go down the private route instead, allow the private market to take over. And you have a situation where you have people whose rent is being paid by the taxpayer. So you have, and the rent is going directly to a private landlord. So instead of, which would make more sense to provide social housing, because the taxpayer would be funding a home for someone, a real home, and not just rent for that person.
Renters. I asked Peter Kemp, who's been researching housing policy for decades. Is it just greedy landlords pushing up prices?
It's nothing to do with greediness. It's what we live in a private enterprise, capitalist economy. The key underlying problem is a chronic undersupply of new build housing in Britain. We've got rising demand. When COVID hit, quite a lot of people left the city centres, and now rents are rising when they've returned. And then there's general household growth. The population's growing. So it's like a perfect storm.
Many campaigners are calling for a rent freeze. Is that a solution to these problems?
A seductive idea, but actually it's misguided. The supply will go down even further. Existing landlords will get out. New landlords won't come in. So you have to find a solution that's a bit of a compromise that enables landlords to make a reasonable profit, but not an excessive one.
The National Landlords Association blames...
One problem also is that the landlords are not regulated properly. So it's not just about the price, as we saw in the beginning of the video. It's also the accommodation, the quality of the accommodation. You know, I've seen videos online of people who are living in box rooms without windows. How is that legal? That's the problem. And as was pointed out earlier on in the chat, you know, there were Tory MPs who voted against making homes suitable for human habitation.
To the supply and demand issues on government tax policy.
The government has repeatedly promised to make private renting fairer and says it will introduce a renters reform bill in this parliament. But that could take years. So what does it mean for people who need a home right now?
I was not expecting to be in this position at the age of 34.
Earlier this year, Jess left her job and her life in Cambridge, ready for a new chapter studying a master's degree in Manchester.
It was meant to be an exciting new step.
She was looking for a place with two of her best friends.
We started looking for houses to rent. They were just finding it nigh on impossible.
Where did that leave you?
Well, it left me here. I'm living at my dad's house in Wolverhampton. Never thought that I'd have to live here again.
It was a bit of a surprise, wasn't it? Because I thought she'd be coming for a bit.
And it was meant to be 2 weeks and it's turned into 3 months.
Yeah. You just feel like, this is wrong, I shouldn't be here. I'm an adult now.
Like a lot of people, Jess has turned to house share websites too, but the whole experience has left her exhausted.
Look, house share, I've done house share myself in the past. It's okay if you're in your 20s, but when you move into your 30s or 40s, you don't want to be doing that. You want to have something more stable. You want to have your own private home, if you're renting a private apartment, or you want to be buying a house. You don't, the solution cannot be, well, people just need to move back in with their parents, or people just need to go into a house share. There needs to be more, as we said in the problem is supply. There's too much demand and too little supply.
Furnished room in a house, £2,617 per month. That is insane.
What about the messages you've sent out?
Absolutely no replies at all. Nothing.
I almost made my peace with the fact that I could never buy a house. But now you can't even move to a new town. That makes me feel so trapped. That's so scary.
I just feel like I'm not making the most of life.
Renters can keep hoping for government action or that the market cools down. But until then, they'll have to deal with this perfect storm in renting and maybe settle for poor conditions, grueling house hunts, or sticking it out at home with mum and dad.
There's no happy ending here. There needs to be political pressure. As I said before, you have to put pressure on politicians both in and outside of Parliament. Outside, you can see the protests taking place, but what needs to happen also is in Parliament, and you need to write letters to your local MP. This is the only... Hundreds of letters to an MP will shift the needle, but you need hundreds of letters to hundreds of MPs, and then that's going to put pressure on them, because they want to hold on to their seat. If they fear that they're going to lose their seat, then they're going to change. And of course, there is the other problem is the NIMBYism, not in my backyard. So when you do want to build more social housing, for example, local residents will be against it because they fear, if they're owning their own homes, they fear that their house price will drop, which means that they're going to put pressure on the local council or the MP in their area not to allow social housing in the area. So yes, we need social housing, but not in my area, not in my backyard. And this is a huge problem because you have very powerful lobbies, communities, and they're generally older people. I'm not criticizing older people here, but it's generally older people who fear that their house price is going to drop, and what they're handing over to their children when they pass on is an asset that's worth less, and they're concerned about that. And they have time. They have the time on their hands. They're maybe retired to lobby the council, to lobby politicians, while the younger generation who are, running around trying to get, maybe doing a 0-hour contract or working their arses off on, just to get some money to put aside to eventually be able to get a mortgage if possible. They don't have the time to lobby government. So it's a difficult situation. And hopefully in the near future, maybe the Labour Party will start to start building social housing and ease this shortage. So guys, we're almost at the end of the stream for tonight. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who came on. Thank you so much for your support, for your super chats, not just tonight but throughout the year. Greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for that. Next year, next week will be next year. So the next live stream will be on Tuesday. What date is Tuesday? Let me check. Tuesday the 3rd. Yay. So it'll be on the 3rd, and we'll talk about probably what's going to happen in politics in 2023. Make some predictions. I'd like to hear some of your predictions too. Otherwise, I'll see you on Tuesday. Have a great weekend and have a wonderful new year. But before you go, remember we have our one video for the road. I hope you enjoy it. I'm sure you will. Hey. Why isn't it loading? Oh, God. Do it the hard way. It was Matt. No, it wasn't. Oh, I'm so sorry about this. These things always break at the last minute. Where was Matt's video? This one.
We bring together a selection of our most confident pundits.
No, that was last week. Sorry about that. Matt, where is your video?
Did you hear about the private jets and the motorcades at COP26? But they're not all electric vehicles. Yeah. And all the oil companies that are there and the beef on the menus. Yeah. They're such hypocrites. I guess so. Isn't it great? What? Well, I was beginning to worry. About what? All this climate change stuff. I was beginning to worry it was a real problem. But now I can see the hypocrites. I don't need to care. But it is still a problem. They don't think so. They're literally at a massive meeting about it? Eating beef. Not all of them. Enough for me not to care. So because they're hypocrites, it's not a problem. Exactly. It's like when that Cummings bloke drove to Barnard Castle when he had COVID. I was like, if the rules don't apply to him, they don't apply to me. So what did you do? I went to see my grandma. And didn't she get COVID? Yes, and I miss her, but that's not the point. What's the point? I don't understand. That's the game. If you can prove someone's a hypocrite, you can just ignore them. I mean, yeah, I agree. Setting an example is really important, but it's not the only thing that matters. So speaks a hypocrite? But I mean, isn't everyone a hypocrite in some way or another? Yeah, it's great. I can ignore everybody if I want to. So I assume you don't vote for anyone then? No, I vote for the people who tell it like it is. But all of them are hypocrites. They don't pretend to be perfect. And anyway, it's the message, not the messenger. I think I've worked it out now. You just want to do what you want to do without caring about how it affects anybody else. At least I'm not a hypocrite.
So guys, have a great weekend, a great new year. Don't eat or drink too much. Be safe. And I'll see you on the other side. Take care. Good night.